it up on my laptop so I can monitor the chat. We are drawing Noah today. And what we're going to be doing, this project was originally called the 2027. There we go. I know I've got my sound up. This was originally called the 2027 Noah's Archipelago calendar project. What I've actually decided I'm going to do is, instead of a calendar, which is only really good for 1 year, I am going to rework it into a book. And the idea is a book of days. So one of the ideas with Noah is he's very much into any sort of, the national fill in the blank day, those kind of fake holidays, as well as, of course, all the real holidays. He loves them all. Um, so we're going to work with that. And what I'm going to do with each of these, this is going to be for August, so I've already got January through July done. The book of days will end up being full color. I'm just pulling out pens and stuff. I'm a little behind on my schedule. I looked at one point I had 15 minutes until my stream started, and then suddenly I was 2 minutes late. I'm like, oh. Anyways, so we're scrambling a bit here. But anyways, so the book of days is going to be a full color book. And what it's going to be would be each of these full color pages. And while I'm talking, why don't I just pull out in case anybody's new to the channel and hasn't seen previous episodes. These will be kind of like section headers. So for example, here's the January one. And then I'll have so that would be like the left-hand page, and then the right-hand page of the book, I will have something along the lines of, uh, looked at my, looked at the chat there. Anyways, never mind. This is me being distracted by the fact that I'm seeing my own name in there instead of usually I just talk and not type. Anyways, so then on the right-hand side, there would be a thing with January. Maybe we talk about some January holidays that shift, although off the top of my head, I can't really think of any. More, as opposed to say in March and April, you could have Easter, and that's going to be on a different day every year, right? But mostly we won't be doing kind of the mainstream holidays. We'll be looking at some random ones. In fact, if I turn around, I think I have a notebook where I have a few ideas. So for example, January, one of the ones would be like, there's National Apricots Day on January 9th. I don't know why Apricots Day would be in January. It makes no sense to me. But anyways, so there'd be stuff like that, and then we'll have some more illustrations. Anyways, that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but we're going to continue these 12 full color illustrations until I've got them all done at this sometime in June or early July, and then we will start kind of shelve this project for a little bit while I will work on something else on the Tuesday streams, and I'll do the writing that I need to do for that project. And then we will come back with any extra illustrations at a later date. So anyways, what I'm going to be doing right now, this will, I always do first is kind of my outlines, and I'm a little bit loosey-goosey with the hedge in the back here. And then we will start doing the coloring in. There have been times when I've tried to do marker coloring first and then the outline on top. I always seem to mess that up though, so we do the outline first. Anyways, so where this picture is set is Noah, his wife, and their kids live in the guest house of his wife's mother or his wife's parents' place. So, and the wife's parents have a pool. Noah treats it as if it's all his own yard, of course. He's kind of in cahoots a little bit with his father-in-law, because his father-in-law, Frank, always wanted to retire and go buy a big, big farm out somewhere on the prairies. But the wife, Agnes, not very happy about this and insisted they maintain this big property in the city in Victoria, BC. Anyways, Frank is very enabling of Noah's different projects like a chicken coop and a backyard orchard and veggie beds and all this, because it kind of allows him to pretend like he got that farm he wanted. And then the mother-in-law Agnes complains nonstop. Hello, Sigma. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. And the mother-in-law complains all the time about Noah hanging out in her yard and all that. So we are going to have a little bit of the pool when we get right down there. And so what I'm using, by the way, is just these Stapler pigment liners at this point. We're going to use some alcohol markers and other markers in a bit. We may even end up putting in some detail with pencil crayons as well. We'll kind of see when we get there. Truth or dare? Oh boy. Well, I'm kind of busy in terms of being able to do any dares, so why don't I say truth? I may regret that. You're drinking beer? Cool. I am drinking something far more boring, sparkling water with a little lime in it. Now, now we need to draw Ursula, and Ursula is just using a super soaker here, but nonetheless, she finds the whole uh, pretending to be a sniper thing very entertaining. Probably she gets that from her big brother Duke, who is a hunting guide, although that doesn't, it comes up occasionally in the comics, but Ursula does take archery lessons, although she's continually disappointed by the fact that they won't let her do anything fun like shooting arrows off of anybody's head or shooting apples off of people's heads. So, so, anyone who's seen some of my other streams may notice that I'm not really doing my top left to bottom right thing. That's what I do when I'm working with liquid inks like India ink and whatnot. But these ones, they dry quick. They don't really smear, so I get away with being a lot more casual in my approach, I guess. And Ursula's got her sniper position ready down in the bushes behind the pool. It would appear that she's left eye dominant, which possibly means, usually that would mean that you're left-handed, I think, but some people are indeed left eye dominant, right hand dominant. I was one, which is why I am a terrible shot. But, yeah, anyways. You're catching her in the moment where she has just pushed the trigger, but the water has not hit her father and ruined his hair yet. You'd think that if he was going to take a nap on his pool floaty, by now he really ought to know that he should be wearing a shower cap, because if Ursula's around, his hair is going to be ruined at some point in his sunning himself. I'm trying to remember exactly how I drew. Got a bit of a weird angle on the diving board here. So it is going to look a little bit foreshortened, but what are you going to do, right? I suppose the ultimate irony would be if these bushes here were planted by Noah as part of his gardening efforts in this yard. Agnes would have probably wanted it to be pure lawn all the way up to the concrete for the pool. And then Noah probably decided he wanted to plant some bushes that would be nice and pretty, maybe some blueberries, something like that. And now they provide the cover for his kid to blast him with water every time she gets a chance. So, and because we're doing color, I'm not going to be worrying about, any sort of shading or that sort of detail. So we've got a fairly quick outline job to do. And I suppose probably for safety's sake, I should probably say don't fall asleep in the pool on a pool floaty because, bad things can happen. But Noah is a cartoon, so he would probably be just fine. This was kind of a recurring gag when I was still doing Noah as a several times a week Procreate comic. We had multiple incidents of Ursula and her super soaker. All right. Now we're finally drawing Noah. I say finally, like as if we had been live for longer than the last 10 minutes, since I was a little late in starting the stream today. Yeah, anyways. We're gonna get to see Noah in his tinted shades, which I used to draw Noah always in tinted shades, but and that kind of fell by the wayside at some point, I guess in 2023, I guess. Maybe 2024, I don't remember exactly. But the origin of it is that Noah, I'm gonna use a thinner one for his drool. Hi, Jason, how's it going? And thank you. Um, so Noah here, one of the things he does is he sings in bands, and one of them is a U2 tribute band, which his wife is a huge fan of. So the tinted shades here kind of started um, early on when he was doing a lot more Bono impersonating. But then that kind of, frankly, I got sick of the gimmick, I guess, is what it came down to. So there was one comic where he and his wife had a bit of, not really a spat, but a disagreement about the tinted shades and whatnot, wherein he pointed out that she told him to wear them and she was insisting that she didn't. Or when he quoted her back, then she was like, well, yeah, but. And then after that, we didn't really draw him with shades anymore. So, anyways, Noah's got he's got himself a beer with a lime in it. Frankly, it looks like he's not got the greatest grip on it, like it might spill, but you know, that's what he gets for dozing off with it. Kind of looks like at least in this drawing, kind of looks a little bit like Noah needs to hit the gym a bit more. He would probably be offended that the cartoonist said that, though. Let's see here. And today we're going to draw him as if he's wearing board shorts. Normally, I kind of draw Noah as wearing a Speedo, but when you've got this angle and he's in the middle of a pool floaty, if I drew him wearing a Speedo, it would look like he wasn't wearing anything at all because it would be, hidden down here. So we're just going to do the board shorts thing this time. Perhaps his favorite Speedo is in the washing machine. I will draw the what's underneath the water line, but we're going to do that with a thinner pen to kind of give the sense of it being a little bit obscured by the water. No, it also has a hairy chest, but we will do that after I color in his skin color because otherwise I find that um, the black lines tend to want to run a little bit, which is a pain in the butt. So there we go. And dry his wedding ring on. The rest of his hand is dangled and not visible. Feet are always a little bit weird to draw in cartoon. So, yeah, anyways, let's go to the narrower pen and we'll draw in his heel. It's not a huge difference. It's kind of subtle going from 1.2 millimeters to 0.7 millimeters, but it is a little bit visible. So, drawing a little bit of wave action. Well, not really wave, but ripple action. And now we are ready for color. So, um, I think what I'll kind of work back to front. Sometimes with stuff like this, I'll do the darker colors first because I want to see exactly if the alcohol ink kind of goes whoosh, you know. Um, but we may also at the end, if there's some areas of overlap, I do have some thicker pens, and sometimes I like to thicken up the lines, but I usually do that after I'm done coloring. So, and where is my so pulling out my trusty test sheet for determining what the color actually is, because the color on the cap usually is not what it looks like at all. And, oh, this isn't called sky blue, it's called mint blue, but see, it'll work. And I will flip this upside down. I mostly use alcohol markers for coloring in these drawings, but there's certain colors like for Ursula's hair and whatnot that I have a color that I like from like old regular markers. So I haven't really seen the need to switch that up until those run out of ink. So we're just going to go with that. I will say with the set of alcohol markers I've got, one of my ongoing frustrations is that the greens that I've got are there's a bunch that are really light and similar, and then some that are super dark, but the darker ones tend to be a little more blue-green, which doesn't always work the best, you know? Anyways, so we are managing. At some point, I guess I could also start playing with some acrylic paint pen markers, but what I find, I don't know, it's a little bit weird, but if I use my acrylic paint pen markers on an acrylic on canvas painting, no problem. They got lots of juice in them. But I use the exact same marker on paper and feels like it's running dry almost immediately. I set it aside, cap it, come back to it a few minutes later, but on canvas, then it's drying again. So I don't know. There's probably some trick to using alcohol to using the acrylic paint pen markers on paper and having it go smoothly, but I personally have not figured that out yet. I'll have to look for some tutorials on YouTube. I'm sure some kind soul must have done one here or there. Uh, and that complaint, by the way, I have multiple acrylic marker pens from different brands, and that seems to be an issue with all of them. So, I don't know. Anyways, so we got our blue sky. I'm liking this shade of blue, so I'm going to set it aside because obviously we got a lot of water to draw in as well. Just while I think of it, a lot of yeah, the diving boards I've seen kind of have that kind of turquoisey color, so I think I'm going to that one will be a shadow, but I'm going to look for a lighter one that's kind of dead on for it. And I'll do that right now. Well, I think that one I think is the right color. Both of these shades, yeah, actually that one's maybe not quite greenish enough, but and I'll repeat both of those shades or all three of those shades in the water itself. Now, for his snoring, I mean, normally you would want it would be good to have kind of like a contrast, so like an orange against the blue, so it pops. On the other hand, orange doesn't really feel like a sleeping color. I don't know. So I'm gonna think about that. And which means I'm not gonna color in those Zeds yet. But what I am gonna color in, Noah's board shorts are gonna be red. I'm gonna use that red. It's good to kind of repeat your colors throughout your composition. It kind of draws the eye around. Therefore, I made Ursula's shoes. Not that you can really tell that they're shoes, but I mean, she's lying down, so those are her heels. Um, but I did bounce that color around. And yeah, well, let's get those trees in the background done. See, this is what I was talking about. I don't know how well that shows up in the camera, but that is definitely, I would say, more of a shade of turquoise blue than quote unquote forest green. Anyways. And even that's kind of a bluish, well, I don't know, that's probably off camera now, but that one's kind of a bluish, but it is a dark green at least. Let me check this deep olive green. That's a little better. So one of these days, what I should probably do is sit down and make like a color chart where I have each color listed and whatnot. But then again, it kind of color changes depending what's next to it too. So I'm gonna blend a couple different colors for these arborvitas or whatever. And I think I've said in previous streams where we've had this view of the backyard, if that's supposed to be the hedge that divides, You would presumably see the neighbor's house through here or some other evidence. We never do that. We just have the sky. Um, but that's probably how Agnes likes to imagine things, that the universe just falls off a cliff over there and she doesn't have to look at her neighbor's house. Kind of using these little feathering strokes, it does kind of give the impression of like branches in the distance. Oh, yeah. Well, it would help if my hand is kind of blocking the view. So if I move it this way, I think you can see what I'm doing. It'll become more obvious as I move across the page anyways. And the other thing that's happening is with each of these strokes, the ink afterwards is kind of bleeding out. But we can kind of use that to our advantage as long as we know in advance and just make smaller strokes that are further apart. Gonna have to make a different thumbnail for. Uh, right now, I'm just using what is kind of like my Noah Thorson general thumbnail, but I think I got to make one that's specific for coloring books, which is what I do on my Thursday stream. Um, and then one that's a little bit more specific to this Book of Days project. Of course, by the time I get around to that, it'll probably be time to set it aside. But then there will probably be a lot of streams next year, or maybe even in the fall, that have to do with the Book of Days. So actually, what I should probably do this weekend is make a little video introducing the project, just like I have one of a video like that for the Miles Morris Miles Morris Pursuit of Happiness book project. That I link in the description, so people can check that out if they're curious. And it just explains more about the project and all that. So, especially now that I actually kind of have a more firm idea of what I'm going to be doing on the with these drawings. So there we have it. And now we'll see how long this drawing takes today. Sometimes I've sort of been like, oh, okay, I'll try and do a second one, but lately these pages are taking close to the whole live stream. So instead, what I think I'll do today, if I finish this one early, is I do have my pen and ink stuff set up, and I do have some cast portraits for the characters from Noah's Archipelago that I need to get done. So we might get to that in the last half of the show or not. We'll see. And I'm trying to kind of twist and turn my pen strokes um, with these arborvitaes as well to kind of give a sense of the branching and you know if there's any movement based on the wind or whatnot. Although, um, well, parts of Victoria are windy even in August. Where I live, I'm about an hour north of Victoria, and in July and August we get where there is just like no wind for 3 weeks. It gets stinking hot and all that. Um, But I think down these guys are supposed to be in Oak Bay, and I think Oak Bay often does have a breeze off the water pretty much year round, so yeah, it certainly doesn't normally get quite as hot there as it does up here. Not that that's gonna stop Noah from hanging out in the pool as much as possible. So that's the first color laid down. Now the second color, excuse me while I sip on my sparkling water. Second color, we're not gonna worry as much about that. So we're kind of gonna do a little bit more quick scribbling because this will kind of show through as shadow. It'll be subtle, but it will be there. Noticing with this project, I'm having to be very careful in how I store the pieces because the marker will kind of stain paper that's touching it. So I'm using a whole bunch of just like printer paper spread out in between each of the main illustrations. First, I thought I was seeing things. I'm like looking very closely, going, no, there is like a yellow outline of the thing from the other page that was touching this. So now I'm being a lot more careful. At the end of the day, it's probably going to be subtle enough that it won't really show in the final art, but always better to be cautious with that sort of thing. So yeah, my general philosophy for marker stuff is to kind of work back to front until you get. um, I mean, there's an argument also to be made front to back, whatever's closest to you. But I think as long as you're kind of careful of your boundaries, your outlines, uh, back to front is fine. Um, Hello, Red Blade. How's it going? Have some respect. Hi, Hockey. How's it going? Buns, eh? Well, everybody loves buns. Most people do, unless you're doing the keto thing, I guess. This would probably be a good point time for me to say I'm generally pretty lenient about chat, but if you're gonna make a negative remark a third time, then you will get kicked. I usually try to not do that, but I'm sure there are probably 10,000 other live streams if you're not into what I'm doing. So there you have it. So we're going to be doing the giant lawn here, which Agnes loves so dearly. And we are going to, let's find the, so very particular light green marker. I think this is it. We want kind of a tone on tone. Just making tiny little indications of kind of grass texture, which would also imply that Agnes's lawn is overgrown, which she would not be happy about. But, it's probably Noah's assignment to mow the lawn, so perhaps he's being delinquent. But it ends up giving a nice kind of a tone on tone thing. Some of this stuff is kind of very slow to add texture in, but in the end, it ends up looking pretty cool. Like let me actually dig it out. I think the first one that took the entire stream, like a whole 2 hours, was May. And it kind of initially, it took a while to get looking good, but that is the May drawing from this project. Um, so it's always a kind of a angle I find with some of the marker drawings that's like it's like, okay, what's going on here? And then just suddenly there comes a stage where it just flips and it's like, oh, that looks cool. Hello, Yardis. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. It's that May one. I remember the thing that was the most frustrating, I think, was like doing the gravel path because it's like you lay down one layer of a light gray and then you want to make it kind of look like there's all the little stones. So it's just like half an hour going da 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 da. But, in the end, it's worth it. This area is not that bad because it's a fairly small section that has to be grassified or whatever you want to call it. I swear this has picked up some of the darker from that, or maybe I'm just imagining it, but think I gotta figure out a different way to mount my phone because when I do this, it looks like, I can see the, phone mount kinda going "whoa, whoa, 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 whoa," as I, shake the table with these little strokes, so I'm gonna have to make a note to go dig out one of my other phone mounts that's a little sturdier. And that's a problem for Thursday, Pura. Tomorrow's live stream, I'm actually gonna be doing it using OBS, so it's gonna be a horizontal stream instead of the vertical, using my laptop and a document camera and all that sort of stuff. Which is to say, we will probably have some hilarious technical difficulty bloopers. But although I've been using OBS to record my weekly recap videos I put on my other channel, so but there's a difference between doing that, where you can just pause the recording if something screws up, and actually going live with it. So we'll see. Hilarity may ensue. That's definitely one where I'm going to be getting ready for the stream a lot earlier. You're almost finished the lawn. And then we are going to pause and color in Ursula before I do the bushes, since Ursula is kind of hiding. Where I think Prussian blue was the. Yeah. Logically, Ursula would probably be wearing shorts, although she does seem to kind of like having the same outfit every day. So perhaps she really would be wearing her jeans and her favorite orange t shirt. In this case, I think I'm going to draw her trying to camouflage herself. So she's not going to be wearing an orange t shirt. She's going to be wearing a kind of a sagey olive green one. Screen, is that it? No, that's not it. Now we go to the non alcohol markers. Give her her camouflage shirt. And then the kind of gingery colored hair. I should probably stop putting these back into the container because the container is kind of a pain in the butt. That's the portrait set, I guess, from Oahu. Is the you stupid right? Okay, you know what, Red Blade? If you don't like my drawings, go somewhere else. Okay, and why don't I help you on your way? Let's just chew in time out, and you can go be rude elsewhere. There you go. Yeah, I just did. In fact, I'm going to hide user on that channel. There we go. Like, I get that there's a whole YouTube sub channel or subculture type of thing about trolling and whatnot, and sometimes it's funny and whatnot, and sometimes it's just like, dude, you're the one who's spending time watching something you apparently don't enjoy. So sometimes people just need a little redirection. I will say I actually kind of keep an eye out for certain usernames that I know belong to. There's just one or two people I used to know ages ago who I don't get along with, and who also probably have just enough lack of things to do to keep them entertained, where they might hypothetically come and be a pest in my chat. But I would assume most people have better things to do. But he does not have any of those particular usernames. So, anyways. Ah, yeah, no worries. And I'm familiar enough with the whole like subculture of like lol cows and whatnot. So, at some point, once you have more than like four people following you, that's always a risk. It's like, I don't care. You can sit and say whatever you like, but if you're going to continually be a dick, then it's like, why are you here? Go find something else to do. That's more fun. Or at least if you're gonna be rude, be funny and rude. Funny and rude gets you a lot of, leniency. Okay. Gray, we will do this here. A little bit of shadow underneath that. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna use that as the main concrete color, but, we'll have it as somewhere in the mix. No, that one's too pink. That one's too blue. Actually, I think fossil would be kind of good for like the shadow side of the concrete. So kind of Use a bit of a broader nib over here. Ah, red. Now you're bald. Well, it's nice that you accept that. Um, this is kind of funny, you know. Clearly, you don't enjoy the art that I do, but you apparently can't find anything you do enjoy on here. That's unfortunate. But you know what? I'll just kick you again. And I know from some of the, some of the comedy podcasts, live stream shows that I watch and whatnot, I know that there is a certain type of user where when you start to kick them out, they just start to make more and more alts and keep coming back. It's like, you can do that. I would recommend a better hobby. Um, some people like woodworking, some people like to cook. But, you know, you wanna keep coming back and keep getting banned or, the hide user from channel, go ahead. It's just your own time that you're wasting. Alright, so we want kind of a warmish gray because 'cause I've noticed most concrete is a bit of a warm gray, but we want it fairly light and not, some of these actually, never mind. I was gonna go into a whole spiel about finding the right one. This one is a little bit pink, but I think we can tone that as well. It's kinda interesting to, like, really have a close look at things like concrete because we tend to not really think about it. It's just something we walk on and whatnot, but when you have a close look at it, there's quite a lot of variation in color and whatnot. So, alright, now we're going to backtrack and color in those shrubs, so look at that. Yeah, I think that kind of a grass green is actually gonna make a good base color. We're just gonna kinda do a few little squiggles. We'll come back with a couple other colors to, make some variation in there. I was debating whether I would, put some camouflage on Ursula's face, but I think for this one, because of the scale, we'll just leave it as, her regular skin color and not, camo stripes painted on. Hello, Mo. How's it going? Uh, some people with some interesting usernames today. How many accounts did Red Blade have? So far two. One presumes more. Once upon a time, when I worked for an indie record label, I think I had like something like 15 YouTube accounts. Although mine was to kind of do the opposite because my part of my job was to pretend like the bands on our roster had more fans than they actually did, which is why I had so many. But uh, oh, he had 19. Oh, okay. Oh, because I thought they had different at least the ones in here had two different profile pics, but wouldn't surprise me if there's a bunch. Hi Derek, how's it going? So we are just layering a few different shades of green in the shrubbery here by the pool. This kind of texturing work is be a bit slow, but in the end, it does tend to give the effect of a lot of little leaves and make it look a little, well, quasi-realistic. Obviously, of course, we're not going for super realism because it's a cartoon, but the texturing kind of does help. So we're kind of getting the effect of some evergreen shrub that has very kind of glossy leaves here. We'll add a little bit of shadow next. And then we can move on to the actual water and Noah himself. I'll take the opportunity when we're just wrapping up these shrubs to sort of mention, because apparently I totally blanked on mentioning it at the end of yesterday's stream. But usually, what I do with the streams is once they do finish, they get saved as private, and then I kind of let the YouTube do its thing in processing things overnight. Um, so that it gets up to the proper quality and whatnot before I make it public again the next afternoon. So if ever you're watching one of my streams and you just catch the ending and then you want to rewatch and it suddenly says private, that's what's going on. So usually somewhere between noon and 3 p.m. the next day is usually when they um, then become public again once the processing is done. So so here we can see where we're starting to get the sense of um, kind of the three-dimensionality of the shrubs there. Uh, might actually look a little bit harsher in the camera. In person, it looks a little more subtle, but also as it dries, I think they usually tend to lighten up just a little bit. So All right. And now we are done basically the whole top. Now let's continue on with the water. I'm going to use the same pale blue that I have in the sky as a base color, and then we'll build some depth from there. Uh, First, we are going to use the narrow tip to just kind of outline all around these Z's. Here in Canada, we usually call them Zs, except things are a little weird in Canada sometimes with the, like measurements and spelling and whatnot, the kind of British versus American thing. So we call the letter a Z, not a Z normally. But if you're talking about taking a nap, we still say catch some Z's. I've never heard anyone say I'm going to catch some Zs. you know, it's kind of like, the whole metric thing. We tell people our height and weight in imperial, like American terms, pounds and inches and feet. We measure speed on our car in that's definitely in kilometers. Um, but some of us of a certain age will still talk about distance in terms of how far something is in miles. Um, Food is sold metrically. Uh, what people tend to talk about it in terms of pounds and ounces, for example, with steak. Even though it's sold in terms of grams, everybody will talk about, like a 8-ounce steak or whatever. Um, and then, but candy, we usually talk about in grams. I don't know why. Unless it's like a pound of candy. Like I think you still can get some candies that are sold by the pound, like a pound container or a pound bag. It'll be 454 grams, but that's a pound. As opposed to like selling it by the half a kilogram or whatever. Um, so a few weirdnesses where we kind of got the metric system, but we also kind of hold on to the old one as well. So now once I've colored in Noah's pool floaty, I will very carefully go over it with the blue to get that kind of color blending. But we'll do that after. Same with Noah's feet under the water. But for now, I'm just going to avoid those areas. That's the base layer. Now, we have an important decision to make. What color is Noah's pool floaty? I often draw it as a shade of pink, which I think probably is the best thing to do, except usually then you want to kind of have that color appear somewhere else again, which, well, mind you, it's kind of related to the red there. So I'm still kind of leaning towards an orange. So that's a little bit dark. Do I have anything lighter orange? No, that's not it for sure. Definitely. It's definitely not it. I think we're actually going to go purple. Now I gotta find something that's kind of a shadowy color to add on to that. That's not going to be too dark. It's too pink. Cool, maybe. This will end up being subtle, but it should darken it in a little bit in some spots. That might end up being too subtle. And then we're going to add the blue over top. And then that means I'm going to use that same color for Noah's snoring. It may be that when it's scanned, that the scanner kind of thinks those are the same colors. I can always tweak it later on when I am doing the Photoshop work on this project. Now, let's color Noah himself in. We'll add a little pink to the bottoms of his feet because, feet tend to be a little pinker. Now, with the shades, they're not going to be opaque 100%. They're going to be like a tinted. So we'll do his skin color under them and then kind of here, like with here where we had the layering, we'll have that same effect. Get the indication that Noah's perhaps starting to get a little bit sunburned. And now we can come back and put the water over his feet a little bit. And then we have the kind of the right sort of blending. Uh, also- also give his drool a little bit of of color. Obviously, in reality, that would be clear, but it's kind of a cartoon um, stereotype that drool is blue. Now, what color should his shades be? I'm kind of leaning towards. Let's see. First of all, he needs his lime in his bottle of beer. That's not the right shade. I'm going to do his shades as kind of an orange color. First of all, that's the sort of color that shades that Bono has been known to wear, and Noah's a bit of a Bono wannabe. But also, more importantly, it picks up with the end of the SuperSoaker, which is orange. So then it kind of puts a visual connection between the two. Now we got to figure out what color his beer should be. Well, we kind of know, but the question is which of the markers is actually going to be the right beer color. And we'll assume it's a Corona. So kind of like that color. And that's also in the same color family as the orange. So add just a little bit of warmth into that. Now for Noah's hair. Oh, wow. And we are past 8 o'clock again. It always it never ceases to amaze me where I go like, "Oh, this one's gonna be done in like 45 minutes easy," and then here we are, which is fine. But this goes to show whatever your estimate for anything artistic, if you assume that it's gonna take 3 times as long as you think it should take, you'd probably be pretty close to it. And then, if you get done faster, well, that's awesome. So, gotta dig out some dark browns of different sorts. And then we will add in the chest hair and the leg hair and whatnot. But first things first. I'm going to take a moment here to finish Noah off with his hairy legs and hairy chest. And then we will put some dimension into the water. So Noah is a fairly hairy dude. In theory, he really ought to have hairy arms as well, but I kind of always assume that he shaves his arms. There we go. Now, let's finish that water. So, I'm not trying to make it look super realistic because, of course, there's all sorts of patterns that water can have in a swimming pool. But I just want to add a little extra, a little something, something, you know? One of the things with Noah is that stylistically, I kind of go in between, some areas be sort of realistic and some are very cartoony. So things like this water pattern kind of fit with that. Like I would say in my Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat project, generally speaking, the art for that is a little bit more realistic. Although the fact that they're human-sized talking rats that wear human clothing obviously isn't very realistic, but so we got that. Kind of tempted, but here I'm just going to do it with. All right. I think we are going to call that one done. Now, definitely, I'm not going to try and do a second one, but um, I think I am going to try and knock out about 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so. Probably end up being half hour 45. I'm going to break out the pen and ink and do some other stuff because I am working on a Noah's Archipelago. Um, I used to call them anthologies. The proper term, I think, is treasury. But so I struggle to get these back into thing. But it's going to be a collection of the web comics. The first one's going to be, I think it's roughly 9 months worth, from July of 2022 till March, beginning of March of 2023. And I will have, because it's the first Noah book, I'm going to have like some character introductions, like a meet the cast kind of thing. And what I decided to do with those is, for contrast, because the actual comics in the book are full color that I did in Procreate, I decided I would do some black and white pen and ink drawings. If you hear scraping and whatnot, that's me shoving the box of marker. Got like a whole bin of markers, and I'm shoving that off to the side. So let us, I'll leave that here while I get set up. Now I might actually, I don't know. I kind of had the idea that I would do them all as pen and ink black and white, but then I also had the idea that I might do the one of Noah. My setup, by the way, for cleaning up water bowl and watering can. I usually have 3 bowls when I'm working in a dip pen with India ink, because then I can kind of have progressively cleaner water as I'm rinsing out my nibs. I may not have got enough water in the watering can for that. Anyways, you can see this is what I usually do, like in the 10 minutes before I set up my stream. We'll just put that off to the side there. I hope that doesn't fall. But we will. And I've got some paper towel. I'll probably only get one of them drawn, but hey, that'll be one more than I was otherwise going to have done today. I may go after and kind of compare and add some line thickness. I think some of these works do have fatter lines, some of them don't. So figure I would leave it at that point for now. And here is the stuff for the other drawings. So I'll show you, just as an example. This is the drawing I did of Ursula. So she's drawing Mr. T-Rex, who is her favorite stuffed animal, and she's imagining herself as a queen in a carriage being pulled by a dinosaur. Because when she is queen of the world someday, she's going to totally do the Jurassic Park thing. And where is the other one I had done? And then her teacher, Miss Fardamar. These are drawings I did at a pen and ink demo at a local gallery a couple weeks ago. So anyways, there's Miss Fardamar. She's teaching equivalent fractions, but she's imagining being on the beach. So we're going to do something a little like that. I could do the one of the baby, but I'm going to try and find one that's a little more entertaining. All right, so here we have a couple lesser characters from Noah's Archipelago. Like I said, we'll probably just get one of these two done, but Duke here is Ursula's big brother. He's from Noah's second marriage. Ursula's mother is actually Noah's 5th wife. That's funny. It ended up being kind of a family family comic, of sorts, but the origin was not. But anyways, um, other one I may do down here, and I think I will actually. I think I am going to start with this. This bottom one is Stacey. She is Ursula, Noah's eldest son's girlfriend. Um, and she is a seamstress. She works in her mom's bridal shop where her mother is constantly nagging her about when she's going to be a bride. Um, and Stacy is into the whole goth scene along with Adam, and she also tends to wear a corset and a big Victorian style skirt. So, anyways, so let's draw Stacy, and that will kind of be our last little bit of the stream tonight. Stacy has a wild mane of kind of teased up goth hair with various colors in it, which aren't going to really show so much when she's drawn in black and white. But she seems like the kind of gal who wouldn't mind being drawn in black and white, actually. Don't see Stacy that much. Trying to remember if I think she appears once or twice in the first treasury book that I'm working on. There is a bit of a plot line at the very beginning of the second book that involves Stacy because Noah wants to start doing an Elvis tribute band, kind of a project, but he wants an authentic Elvis impersonator costume, which for him means from Vegas, but he can't. He doesn't want to pay the fees for a Vegas one. So Adam keeps trying to convince Stacy to sew one for Noah, and Stacy is very adamant that she does not wish to have anything to do with that sort of project. Noah's wife Ruth also sews, but has apparently completely refused to do any costume sewing for him, at least in terms of Elvis suits. Oops, got a bit more ink than I wanted. Has a little bit of a shadow under her chin. It's fine, we can Photoshop later, but I will try and wake that up. Yeah. I'll just kind of make it a big shadow under her chin then. So each of these character portraits is going to have like a little blurb explaining about them and whatnot. Stacy being a minor character, at least in the context of the first book, will have a very short um, write up, but I do envision in later things, later projects with Noah's Archipelago crew that we'll hear more from Stacy. So kind of over the next few weeks as I'm finishing up the 12 main monthly illustrations for the Noah Book of Days project. When they end early enough, it'll take about 15 minutes or so and work on one of these character portraits. Although I'll also be working on getting a bunch of these done sort of off camera. So right now, the hold up with the Noah's Archipelago treasury is I found out that I can get an ISBN number free from the Canadian government through Library and Archives Canada, but you do wait because you have to apply for a publisher account, even and you can do that even as a self-publisher like I am, but that takes, 30 business days. And then once you're approved for that, which I'm sure I will be, then you end up requesting your ISBN, and that takes 20 business days. So I am in that process right now. Could have bought my ISBN from the States, but I kind of thought, well, I think you're kind of supposed to get one for the country you're actually publishing in, you know? And I am in Canada, so there we have it. It's going to end up in black and white looking like Stacey's hair is all one color, but that's totally cool. It probably is at times, anyways. So did not have it look like she has some crazy receding hairline because she probably wouldn't. That might have been a little too far, but I can always fix it in Photoshop. So what Stacy is doing here is called draping, where she's pinning the fabric up as she wants it, and afterwards, she will trim it and sew it together and make it stay the way she pinned it. There will probably be way more pins than I'm drawing in here, but the idea is there. So one presumes that Stacy probably made her own dress. She may have even made her own corset. Corset making is a major pain in the ass. I have done it years ago. If you know exactly what you're doing and you have a good teacher who helps you learn, and I learned from a guy who actually did like theater costuming in Vancouver, then it's, I wouldn't say straightforward, but it's totally doable to do a professional quality job. But if you're learning from books, it's very difficult. I think in the class I made two. Um, and because I had the teacher's help, and he'd been a theater costumer for like 25 years at that point. So loads of experience. He did a lot of like Shakespearean. So he did Edwardian. style corsets and Victorian style corsets and Elizabethan style corsets, all of which are totally different. But the ones I did in the class were great. But and I took super detailed notes and whatnot. Well, I tried to make another one a year later from my notes, and even obviously having the first two as references to look at, it was a gong show. So, which might have been partly the fitting, might have been the fact that I was trying to hand set grommets instead of having like the proper press for them and all that. But it didn't go nearly as well versus having somebody there to help. So, who knows? I thought it would be fun to make another corset at some point, but it's not exactly high on my priority list. I mean, where I do my drawing, the reason why, if you've ever wondered why there's this like grid pattern underneath, this is actually like a quilting cutting board, like a self healing mat. I actually stream from the desk that's supposed to have sewing machines on it, or a sewing machine on it, my little craft corner, but it's also happens to be exactly next to where my router is for the best Wi-Fi. So here's my actual drawing desk is in a different room of the house, and it has absolutely terrible internet. So, anyways, so I should be doing more of this sort of stuff, but I kind of have let it fall by the wayside. But I love watching. There's a few YouTubers who do like historical period costume sewing and stuff like that, and I love watching that sort of thing. Even though I don't do much of it myself anymore. So now we will just finish up Stacy's desk. And I'm going to leave it fairly simple. I'm not going to go too detailed. Got the cords coming down here, here. One of them is going to end up there into her pedal. Yeah, we'll assume the other one kind of vanishes over that way. So there we have a cast portrait done. And that is Stacey, who is Adam's girlfriend, and Adam is Noah's eldest son. So at least we got a little extra done and not just the one drawing, but in wrapping it up, we will set Stacey aside to dry. And that is our main drawing of the evening. So Noah having a nap in the pool, the in-laws pool, and his elder daughter, third child, Ursula, uh, about to blast, or in the process of blasting him with her SuperSoaker. So, my usual wrap up stuff. Last night, I forgot at the end of my stream to say that what I do with these is when I end the stream, then I let it save as private because it takes YouTube up to 24 hours to process the video quality and whatnot. So I let it do that. And then tomorrow afternoon, I'll check it. By then, it should be fine. And then I change the thumbnail to something from here, some process shot, and then I make it public. So if you do want to, well, I guess at this point, I'm probably the only one still watching right now. On tonight's, we had a lot of people earlier. But, the replay is always available the next afternoon and for the rest of this week. So tomorrow, I am streaming horizontally, doing the fancy thing with OBS, and that will be working on Zelma the Destroyer. We will be doing some pen and ink drawings of Zelma's secret basement lab as bonus material for the Zelma the Destroyer comic omnibus project that I'm working on. And then Thursday, we will be working on Noah again, but coloring pages. Wasn't able to. I missed last week's Thursday stream, so we're a little behind, but that's fine. We will have a couple more coloring pages for Noah. Friday, we are inking Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat, so it'll be pen and ink again. And I'll also have my wrap up video showing all the art stuff I've been up to this week. That goes on my other channel, Pura Draculea Art Vlogs. There should be a link on my main channel page. And that usually goes up on Saturday, sometimes on Sunday. It depends how the week is going. And yeah, then of course, next week we will be on the Tuesday. Next week on Monday, we will be working on inking a couple pages from Miles Marv's Pursuit of Happiness, which is Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat related project. And then Tuesday, we will be back with these guys and the giant bin of markers. And we will be doing the illustration for September. Again, I used to say that this stuff was for the 2027 Noah's Archipelago calendar. I'm not going to do a calendar. I decided what I'm going to do instead with these is a book of days. So, a bigger book that kind of discusses all sorts of, or lists, anyways, all sorts of goofy one off fake holidays like National Strawberry Cheesecake Day and, those sorts of things. So we'll have fun with it. We'll be doing a few more weeks until I do the December illustration. So 4 more weeks, I guess, on the Noah's Archipelago Book of Days. Now that's kind of phase one. And then I'm going to switch to working on some pen and ink Noah illustrations for a little freebie that'll be for my newsletter that I'm setting up. Then, by the time we finish that freebie project, then I think we should be ready to continue on with the Book of Days and do a bunch of random little illustrations for throughout the book. And that'll probably be what we work on the Tuesday stream. I don't know, probably through the end of the year. So, anyways, there you go. There's my whole spiel. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's stream. I know some of you did. I know there was one guy with a couple different sock puppets in the chat who didn't, but that's on him. If he wants to spend time watching something he apparently doesn't enjoy, well, who am I to judge his masochism? But when he's rude in the chat, then we go bye bye and blocked him, but hid all his comments. But anyways, most people who are watching this seem to enjoy it. So that's going to be it for me for tonight. Thank you for watching. Bye for now, and bye bye, Noah and Ursula. We'll see you again real soon. Bye.